Hello, everyone. Welcome back finally to another episode of Nothing to Something. I'm Matt Harrington. Today we have Angel Santana from the podcast Have Faith, Let It Begin. How you been? It's been like a long time since I've seen you.
I I feel like the clouds and the storm have passed by, and like our lines of communication have finally lined up, like the stars have lined up. But always a pleasure to be a part of this show. I'm a huge fan, and it's like when we first started together. So to see you doing well and to be invited and to be asked to be invited, it's awesome. So I like to feel like I'm a regular. So cool. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Definitely. And for people listening, he's the one who inspired me to basically start my podcast because he said, have you ever thought about, telling others your experiences? Because I've always shared with Angel, I've always been open with him about how I felt, how I've been feeling. I'd give him, updates and stuff based on my life. And he was like, well, why don't you try podcasting? And I didn't think I'd necessarily be a good person for it. But over the last year or so, I've had to take a break and definitely step back and take some time to go to therapy, which is funny because we were just talking about that. Go to therapy, which helps a great amount. And yeah, so that's what's been going on in my life, long story short. But speaking on that topic of therapy, um and my first question for you, what pushed you, like what was your motivation, your drive to become an advocate for helping others and praying for them and preaching and doing all this amazing work that you do?
Well, I mean, I got to use my mother's line, which is since I was a kid, mom always said to me, Angel, when you were born, all the angels came from heaven. And she would say, do you know why? And I'd say, why, mom? And she'd say, because you're special. Um, I never understood what that meant. I always grew up, uh, being a guy that went to church because that's what everybody did. Remember, I'm older than you, so I'm 43. So when I went to church, everybody went to church, and it was never forced on me. And as I got older in my 20s, I didn't go to church. And one day, I had a huge breakup. I had a very bad breakup to the point where I was depressed. I was in depression for 2 years, and I went to church. And when I went to church, I felt at peace there. I felt at home. And every time I felt as if I was closer to a church environment, I felt as if something was hugging me, something was embracing me. And I just felt that there was something that was really needed for me to pursue. Some people would call that a calling. I call that, I just call it, not to get too religious on your show, but I call it God's will. And I felt like something was pulling me. And it took me like good 3 or 4 years to discover who I was as a person. And then ultimately, just by trying something new, wanting to preach, wanting to just have somebody hear a couple of my stories, because I went through a lot of crap, a lot of stuff. And every time I felt as if the storms were there, the clouds would then disappear and things would get better. But there was always a lesson. So I would go through this really bad turmoil, this bad part of my life, but then there was a lesson, and I learned and I learned and I just applied and I learned and applied. Next thing you know, I had an opportunity to preach. And when I preached, I saw a vision, and I saw my grandmother, who never got to see me preach. And it was her dream, along with my mom's, to see me preach. And when I was done preaching, I never shared this with anybody, not even on my own show. But when I was preaching and I was done, so exclusive, my grandmother appeared to me and she gave me a thumbs up. And I just knew that was what I had to do.
That's nuts. That's deep. That's very, very deep. um
Yeah.
well, I you know congratulate you for definitely stepping up and you know holding that torch up and being the light for others to you know get out of your shell and do what you want to do. Speaking of a breakup, that was going back to why I was not podcasting for a bit. I
Mm.
got into a breakup twice, same person. um it wasn't easy the first time, and then I felt like I should be with them, so I went back then I realized, I didn't want to, I know I wasn't 100% in it. And if I wasn't in it to give it my all, to show that I really cared for them, which I did, but it wasn't, 100%, then I said, why bother, hurting them even more than what I'm already doing now? It's just not right. So I got out of the relationship. It's still, painful today, but we are good friends now. We weren't at first, but now we are. We still talk regularly, and I go to therapy for it, and I always talk with my therapist. Relating back to therapy, that I was confused. I said, I just don't know what to do, and she said, well, what'd you learn in the beginning? And I said, well, in the beginning of therapy, I learned that it's okay to struggle, and it's okay to have all these complications in your life, but there's always a way past it. It's not you're going to hit a dead end and that's it, you're done. You no more shots. There's always another path. It can even be going back, but that wasn't the case. And then I let that sink in, and oh, sorry, I lost it. There we go. And after I let it sink in, I just thought, and I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to tell others about this therapy, that it's okay to go through these things. It's okay to do all this stuff. Like my dad always told me, it's going to be tough going through a breakup, and it's going to be tough going through life and having all these challenges you're not sure how to get past. But it's once you get past it, you're set. Then you look back and you're like, oh, that wasn't that hard, and then you use that knowledge on the next challenge. So that was a low point in my life, why I haven't been podcasting. I've also had, end of senior year during Corona. Side note, that is not fun at all for anyone listening. um,
Wow.
Another thing, I'm starting college next Monday. That's crazy. I just want to get an episode out to let people know I'm doing good, and still doing my thing. But yeah, that was basically my whole time I was off. I was just trying to recover. That was the big thing for me.
That's tough too. And you're at around the same age too that I started dating the person that where I got the breakup. I started dating that person around my sophomore year, all the way until 2 years into college, and then the breakup happened. So it's never easy. And anybody
Never
who's
is.
listening on your show, you'll think that it's the one that got away. You'll feel all this thing, but then you will. Your dad was right. You're gonna feel that there's a day where you just wake up and you go, oh, you know what? That wasn't that bad, but man, I could have done this. And then yes, when you do eventually date again or meet somebody again, those red flags will come up. And the difference though is those red flags, you don't want to put that red flag and put it against the next person, because it's not fair to the next person. Like for example, like let's
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
say, like I'm just giving an example, like a dumb example. So like let's say the person didn't like chocolate, you're offering them chocolate and they broke up with you. Just because the next girl like, well, let me try chocolate. No, I don't want to try chocolate. It's like, no, because chocolate's bad, but no, it's you learn to ease in, and you learn to take you tread lightly without walking on eggshells. Does that make
You take
sense?
baby steps, just baby
Yeah,
steps the
perfect.
whole way there. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you mentioned breakup, and I don't know if that has been a super low point, but one of my next questions was, has there been a low point for you, like a super low point, but then something made you come out of it, like it dragged you out, saying, hey, you got more to do, you got more to prove in this life than just this one this one thing?
Yeah. This that's a hard question for me.
Sorry
But
for
it's
the,
easy.
big question, but
No, no, it's okay. And like, like we talked about when we first started doing podcasting together, I said, you have to be real. That's the difference between what you and I do things differently compared to most people. They don't get real. They dance around the topic. So when I say it's hard for me, I mean it in the sense of it it would have been difficult for me to answer it without crying 6, 7 years ago. It's easier today, but it's still powerful to bring up, but it's healthy for me to answer it. So without being said,
Gotcha.
yes, my lowest point was not to get too detailed, for because the persons are not here to defend themselves, but to have somebody that you literally believe in with all your heart, all your soul, with every ounce of your body, do something to you that will not only pierce your heart, will literally take you to the lowest part of your life where you feel that you're not good enough. You feel that that you did something tragic, but you don't ever get the answer. You'll never know why, but it still happened to you. And it was that one person that executed. So it's like standing in front of a firing squad, but you're blindfolded, right? But at the last second, you are able to peek, and it's the one person you would never expect it's pulling the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
They're pulling the trigger, and they're blindfolded too. And the shots get fired, and you take the bullet. So that happened to me about 6, 7 years ago. It was very difficult to get over, but in the field and in what I believe in, you have to learn to forgive. That's hard to do.
Yeah, that is that's next level stuff. It's not easy for me to forgive someone for doing something, but once you do, it definitely helps. But I know what you mean. It is very, very difficult.
It's even hard to say the word. Like, I
Yeah.
say it, and I'm like, you say it, and you're like chewing on it. You're like, forgiveness. But
Yeah.
then, but after a while, when you finally are able to do it, and it still kind of hurts, but it gets better with time. And therapy for me did it. I needed it. I mean, and I'm 43. I did therapy at 25, 27, 30, 34. Took 6 years off. Next thing you know, I needed it again because something that happened. So yeah, you know.
Yeah. It's 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 definitely rough to say you can forgive someone and know what they did to you, but
Yeah.
it could be small, it could be big, it could be a bunch of things. For me, I've had people uh tell me that they were, my best friend, and I honestly thought they were my best friend, and just turn around and make these accusations against you and tell you stuff you aren't, in your heart you never done, you never did, but the people she tells, or whoever tells, they believe that person, and it
Oh,
hurts. But
man.
they all forgave me, and I told them I never did anything, and we all forgave each other. It was good, but it was hard to forgive. It was not an easy thing to do.
And it's never the same. That's the part
No, it's
that's the
not.
worst. You never get that camaraderie, that full, genuine laughter. You'll laugh again, but it's not the same laugh. It's a different laugh. It's a
Hmm.
chuckle. It's not a gasp. It's not a ha. It's like no, eh. And
Yeah, it
it's
definitely
hard.
got weird around well, I guess you could say ex best friend. Um, but we're good now, and it's not, we're not. I don't want to hold any grudges. I'm just gonna leave it in the past, and I have. But for the premise of the show and this episode,
Yes,
I figured, and the topic, I'd bring it up, speaking about
definitely.
forgiveness. So the second part of my question, you talked about your lowest of lows. What was the one thing, the one person, the one activity, whatever it was that pulled you back out saying, it's okay, it's okay not to be okay. That's a saying I have on my show. It's okay not to be okay. And what was that thing that pulled you back out of that hole?
This is what I love about both of our podcasts. I love your saying it's okay to say it's okay, where on mine is don't allow anyone to steal your joy. So we're right there. It's
Mhm.
funny, and just to gives you a testimony to your age. I'm 43, and you're closing in on you're an old soul, so you're 17 going on 30, right?
Yep.
So yeah, so it's like, but let me uh, this is a really cool story, and I'm going to try to keep it as quick as I can on it. The bottom line is I was struggling with this problem that I hit the lowest of low, and I was hitting that for 6 consecutive years. And around the seventh or eighth year, when I was dealing with it, I started sharing a portion of it on the podcast for the first time. So I let my audience in and let them know what was happening. Because for the first 3 years of my podcast, I would preempt myself to not be on the air because I didn't want people to hear me be at my lowest. So I would
Hmm.
pre-tape the show because I didn't want them to hear me, because I knew after I got past a certain part of the month, I would get better again. So, well, I let people in because I needed it, mainly because my therapist left. I had no therapist. I had to find a new
Oh,
therapist, and that's a whole different topic right there. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so right, so I let them in, and one day I look out my door of my house, and somebody dropped by a seed, one of those seed things where you can, what is it called? Like you put seeds in it and it sprays for the lawn.
Oh,
What is
like
it called?
a
A seed feeder? Uh,
a cedar. Let's just call it that.
we'll call it a cedar. There you go. So you can tell I'm not handy, but they left me a brand new one with seeds inside, and then a letter that said, you're planting seeds all over the world. You know, let's like basically let's break new ground. Not worry about the past. Let's grow something new. And
Wow. That
it was like, and then of course I don't know who dropped it off. And I was sad to say that I didn't know my neighbors all by their first names. I was always, hey, what's up? But I looked at my security camera and I knew who it was. And then I matched the names. And then I put it into a sermon. And then when I went to put the sermon and I did it at the church, he showed up for the service.
wow.
And it was just so powerful. And that right there was the beginning of the turn where things got easier. And I'm happy to say that this year was the first year ever that I didn't fall into a slight depression.
Wow. Good for you. That's very impactful to me, right now. That's
It's hard.
I'm like at a loss for words. It's just what he offered, and just as a show of it's okay not to be okay, and
Yeah.
it's time to grow, and we're all here, we're all realizing it, and we want to help you. And that's another hard thing to do, is realize there is help. It's not just, for me, it's always been in my head, I got to be the one to do it. I have to fix myself. I can't, have help doing it. And then once I slowly, and I'm still working on it, slowly letting help in, slowly accepting that, it's okay not to be okay by yourself. You can use others. It blew my mind how much I can, grow in life. And when you talk about, he went to your sermon like the day you were doing it, not knowing you were gonna preach. It was about him, and you figured out that the guy who gave you, well, still call it the cedar, um, which what he showed up is just mind blowing. There's just, when you talk about, oh, excuse me, a miracle, that's one of them.
And the cool thing about it was, I brought the cedar with the seeds with me. So I used it
That's
as a
cool.
prop. So I had it, covered. And then when I told the story, I took it off. So, and then I read
Wow.
the actual card to the congregation. So yeah, it's, one random act of kindness, man. You know, it, I could sit here on a soapbox. We both could. It it's the littlest things that can change somebody's, mind. Your show, nothing to something, like I told you when I heard your first episode. And for all of you that didn't ever hear it, if this is your first one, or if this is my fans coming in to hear me on this show, you have to go back to listen to just his first episode alone, because it is inspiring. You don't realize the type of person who's hosting the show. You don't realize where the person has come, and you don't realize how much you can relate,
Mm-hmm.
and you learn, you know, and it takes 5-6 minutes to listen to an episode, maybe 10 minutes. It doesn't even matter. You'll get something out of it, you know?
Exactly. I just, relating back to my very first episode.
Right?
Oh geez, that was crazy. I did that thing over just the intro alone. I counted 16 times, and I was like, I gotta make it perfect. I gotta make it perfect. And it was funny because I saw on Facebook 2 days ago or yesterday, whatever day it was, it said, your first marathon is not going to be good. Your first swim practice is not going to be good. Your first guitar lesson is not going to be good. Your first anything is not going to be good, but your 100th will be better than your first. So
Mm,
who cares how long it takes to do the first? Just do it, because we all know it's not going to be good. It's what comes after. And as long as hey, the first is not going to be my best, but the 100th will, work up to
mhm.
it. I'm nowhere near 100, but it's definitely it's definitely a work in progress. And I can tell you, it's not to put myself on a pedestal, but it's a lot better than my first, where I'm at now. So
Oh God,
that
yeah, that's the way it
that
is.
is that is very true, what I saw on Facebook. And not a lot of things are true on Facebook. So
Yeah, it could play for you and play against you at times. Those
yeah,
memories.
yeah, the
Trust
the
me. I know
internet
that
can
feeling.
the internet is a tool or a weapon. You choose.
Yes, it's true. Very true. There's also an expression that I was actually scrolling back, so forgive me for looking down, but there was an expression that my father taught me, and I sometimes I can't say it right, so I gotta cheat and look it down. But it's a saying that it says people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Wow.
Right? So yeah, I'll say it one more time. People
Yeah,
don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's deep.
that's really deep. Uh, I guess if we're gonna go on random tangent of quotes, my senior quote has always stuck with me since I was a kid, and it came from Kung Fu Panda. Yep, it came from
Nice.
Kung Fu Panda, and it was Master Oogway, the turtle guy. Um, and when he was on the hill, he said, um, "Yesterday's history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why they call it the present." And that just like blew my mind,
That's
thinking
pretty
about it. I
cool.
was like, what should be my senior quote? And I thought about that. And I actually had people come up to me and be like, Matt, where'd you get that quote? Who is this Master Oogway guy? And I'll be like, he's from Kung Fu Panda. And then they're like, oh,
Yeah,
okay,
right. And
never
they're
mind.
like, I gotta go rent it. I gotta go get it.
Yeah, exactly. And I just thought it was cool that people could relate to it and be like, yeah, I really needed this. And it was just a senior quote for a yearbook. So
So you're gonna have to tag Jack Black. It's Jack Black. He's from Kung Fu Panda, right?
yes.
You're
Well,
gonna have
no,
to.
it was the Master Uruguay, whoever voiced him. I'm gonna,
But I mean, he
tag
was the
you.
star. He was Kung Fu Panda, right?
Yeah, okay. So Jack Black will
So we're gonna
tag
have
you in
to.
this.
You're gonna have to. You're gonna have to tag Kung Fu Panda on that. Let them know they inspired you.
Exactly. We need some advertisements.
There it is.
Oh my
Sweet.
gosh. Yeah, that was just nuts. That was crazy.
Crazy man.
But I guess we'll start wrapping things up now, because I know I got some things to do and a few more episodes to make. So thank you very much for coming on to the show and preaching, what you've been practicing. And it's just it's been an honor. It's been an inspiration to
Sure.
do this with you.
And if you don't mind, I just want to close out by saying that I've known this guy. This is for all the fans. I've known Matt H since he was a young kid. Um, him and his brothers and his family, great people. One of the things that drove me to these kids is their ability to shine, their ability to work with one another, but more importantly, the way they respect each other as brothers and the way they respect their parents. You don't find that these days. You don't find that anymore. And then on top of that, to know where Matt H has come from, to be able to come on the air and humble himself and to share with you what he was and what he is inspiring to be is just another way of showing everyone out there that there is good in the world, that there is good inside. And no matter how many times we make turns, no matter how many times we make choices that may not feel as if they're the greatest choices to make today, they are the most inspiring decisions and the most inspiring transitions that you will do and make, and you will change others along the way. So I encourage and I'm asking all of you to follow him, to subscribe. You don't even have to subscribe to my show. Subscribe to his, because he's doing the work and he's doing it way younger than I did. And for that, I say thank you.
Wow. I mean, thank you for saying all that. That's amazing. And, to tack on the very little bit after we close this, small act of kindness goes a long way, and it's definitely okay not to be okay. So if you think you're in a bad spot, I'm always answering my phone. I'm glued to it 24/7. That's for sure. So, but thank you again for coming on, and it's been a pleasure.
Hey, no problem. Got to have you back on my show.
Yes,
And
sir.
we got to do something there, man. Definitely got to talk about that. Listen, for all your fans, always a pleasure. Nothing is something. Great. Subscribe.
Alrighty. So long.